Hey, special educators, it's Jennifer from Positively Learning. Thanks for joining me here. I want to share a blog post with you. It is about mindfulness and how we can incorporate some ideas into the classroom. Now, I almost didn't want to share the topic at the beginning of this video because I don't want you to say, nice idea, but who has time? Because that is certainly understandable and exactly where I'm coming from for this post. I knew that mindfulness was something that's very important for my students. However, we are always working with negative time in the resource room. We have so much to do, so little windows of opportunity to get all of this learning in, and we're working with the environment that we're in. Sometimes there are just things that are pressing on our time. Where in the world does mindfulness come in? However, on the flip side, I also know that if we were incorporating these types of practices, that could help us so much in accomplishing our goals. So, I have some ideas of how you can fit this into your already very busy day. Now, for reference, I was working the majority of my time with very young students, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, both in the inclusion classroom and in the resource room setting. I was pulling intervention groups. Some students were coming several different times into the resource room. Some students were only visiting it once a day. So we had a little bit of everything going on. What I want to do is share this blog post with you. There's lots of details I'm not going to read to you right now, but I wanted to just break down exactly what mindfulness can look and feel like for these younger students and how we can just make this something a little more concrete. We can model and then we can embed this into our daily routines. All right, so mindfulness for me, working with young students, we're focused on these three things. And my eyes automatically go to emotional regulation, like, yes, wouldn't that be amazing? But also being present and self awareness. In my opinion, it went in this order. Being present was something that I was not ever thinking about before I started taking grad classes about mindfulness and saw the need in my own classroom. But that to me was a great starting place because it was something that we could grasp a little quicker. Emotional regulation was a process, and self awareness, I felt, was kind of like that icing on the cake. We weren't going to start with that one until we had those other two, a little more experience with them. So, definitely check out this blog post so you can read more about how that works. But these are the three things I focused on, and here is how we did them. Now, there are two major components, and I'm actually going to scroll past the first one, which is visuals, because we know how well visuals go. And I want to move to this section. All right. So, what I love to use with my students to bring up this idea of mindfulness and other SEL character education topics is using read alouds because my students loved them, I loved them, and they were just so accessible to my students. I could read a thought provoking read aloud, have my students enjoy the text, enjoy the story, asking questions, modeling think alouds. And of course, the illustrations are there to make that connection. So I just pulled out three different ones. One is a classic. I know you have this in your classroom. It's chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum, hard to say. And I have the question, what can chrysanthemum do when classmates make fun of her name? The next one is Jabari Jumps, one of my favorite books to read. What can Jabari tell himself as he faces the high dive? Sophie. We know that when Sophie gets so angry or so mad, Sophie feels so angry. What can she do to work with her strong feelings? So, this is the conversation starters. We can use this conversation and introduce some vocabulary, introduce some coping strategies, introducing some new ideas about self awareness and mindfulness, and then we can model. This gives our students a chance to explore without it being like too heavy, right? All right, so now I'm going to back up to some of the modeling. Love, love these visuals because I know visuals really resonate with students. I want to draw our attention to the ones in the middle because those are more of the student accessible visuals. I see rainbow breathing and figure eight breathing. My students were not necessarily independently accessing this text. So they may still see it and hear it as we read it and we model it, but it's really about the visual. So, rainbow breathing, students can touch each color. They can rainbow breathe, breathe in, breathe out smoothly as they touch each color of the rainbow. And you can see so many layers gives your students many opportunities. The other one's the figure eight breathing. I love that. Breathing, it does not come, I mean, it comes naturally, obviously, but deep breathing does it. And it doesn't for me either. I am a little type A, and breathing, I'm the one who kind of holds my breath when things happen, and I don't even know I'm doing it. So if you have any students like that, or if you're like that yourself, this is great to do together. But what I really love is the hot air balloon in the middle. So all of these breathing exercises have prompts. That's what we're modeling. But the ones in the middle don't have any prompts. They're just these strong visuals. They're on a book ring. You can print them out or you can post them and display. And that is what I think my students are going to gravitate towards the most. They can grab one of these. The visual acts as an anchor to make that connection. They practiced rainbow breathing, so they might see a rainbow on a visual card. They might see the figure eight. We have prompts for hot air balloons. We have prompts for feathers, soup that you blow on to cool off. That's a deep breath. These other visuals can be around our classroom environment. They can be in our small groups. They can tuck them into our binders. We can post them on the wall. We can refer to that, although our students may not be reading them independently. That does not mean they can't interact with them. So, mindfulness in the classroom doesn't have to be a separate curriculum. I mean, it would be absolutely wonderful if it was, but it doesn't have to be. Why does mindfulness matters? I think we all can understand the emotional regulation. That is something that is impacting our learning time. Wouldn't it be amazing if we can give our students not only skills to use in our classrooms, but to take with them? Boosting social skills. I know my students, majority had speech and language goals and objectives that were really something we were working on all of the time. I'm not a SLP, but that is something that certainly impacts my students, not just during services. So that is something that their social skills is a wonderful opportunity to give them time to apply what they're learning. And then I talked about academic achievement. So we're talking about focus, attention spans, concentration. Daily mindfulness really does go through that and helps improve that. I will not say that's something you're going to see in 1 week, but it is something we're going to see long term. And that sounds pretty good to me. All right, so there are some visuals and read aloud suggestions in this blog post. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know it's something that's very easy to say, we will do this when I put out all those other fires. But if we can do this alongside that important work that you're doing and managing your classroom and trying to fit everything in, I think it can make things run much smoother, not only for your students, but also for you. All right, I'm going to link these up in the video description. Be sure to check them out and hit subscribe. I will be back with more tips to help your classroom run smoothly and save you some time. Thanks so much for listening.